So please help me welcome Beth Seltzer, educational technologist at Bryn Mawr College, and Jenny Sporer, Director of Educational Technology Services at Bryn Mawr College. They're here to talk to us about their program to define the digital competencies and the liberal arts mission. Take it away, folks. I will be happy. If you don't hear questions, I will relay them, but otherwise, this is your gig. So.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Hello, everybody. So we're here to talk about the digital competencies and the Liberal Arts College mission. I've got our chat window pulled up, and I'll also be keeping an eye on the Twitter feed throughout this presentation. So if you have any kind of questions or comments, whether you're joining us live in person at the conference or virtually, hopefully we'll be able to see all your questions and respond to them. So we wanted to start off actually with a few reflection questions, just to hopefully talk over a little bit in the room. What digital competencies do you use in your everyday work and life? Sort of what technologies maybe have you used today, or are you using, do you use most usually? How have these changed over time? And if you think back to your college experience, what prepared you to develop these digital literacies? So maybe if Joe, you could get a few responses from the group and also keep an eye on the virtual world.
Do you guys want to advance the slide on there? So we're seeing your PowerPoint, but not the.
Oh no.
What are you seeing now?
Yeah. We're seeing the PowerPoint, but not the. It doesn't look like you're running the slideshow yet.
Oh dear. That's
hang on
not
one
good.
second.
Give us 1 second.
Sorry.
Go back to.
That's the hard part. Automatically goes into second window. That's what's happening.
Screen share. All right, let's try that again. Do you see it now?
Yes. Well,
Yay.
yeah, we do.
Yay.
Yeah, I think they must have two screens. Could you just let us know?
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're still seeing the edit screen, not.
Gotcha.
But if you just, I mean, it'll work if you just want to.
Yeah, we'll just keep going through that one.
Yep.
Sensibly, it'll work.
I think. Well, let's just.
So, what digital competencies do you use in your everyday work and life? A couple of thoughts. Yeah.
Maybe. I'm sorry. Please. No.
I'm the least tech person in the room. I'm just here as a reporter. Oh, but this is my magic pen, LiveScribe pen.
Oh, LiveScribe pen.
Will you go wherever
Yep.
I am in my notes? I don't know
So I don't know if you heard that, but the ability to sync notes and audio, and she doesn't know why the whole world isn't using LiveScribe.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, it may go without saying, but that may be the point. But email, constant email every day, all day. Here on my phone. And I mention it, first of all, because it is so ubiquitous, but yet in the university, we don't have to go far to find folks who just aren't, they don't quite have the skills yet to make them effective at communicating via email.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Another example? Yeah.
I have to show people how to use a learning management system.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So are these things that you used in your own undergraduate experience?
So we got one yes, and I'm going to go out on a limb and think that there's probably two no's. Sorry to stereotype. But
I went to college in the 90s, and I recall a faculty member saying, "Hey guys, let's try out this new thing. It's called email." You text to me, it goes through, whatever, and about all the time we're like, this is totally, like, it's not going to take off.
So So I share that. Remember when email was fun? Because everybody else didn't have it?
Are there any more final thoughts? Should we move on?
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right. Yeah, so we've asked this question to a couple of different groups at this point, and we always hear things like, oh yeah, we use a lot of email. Email wasn't always a thing. I think this is a great example how it used to be the kind of new thing that you had to learn, but back, but now it's a very it feels like a very standard thing. We have people talk about using the telephone for the first time in their first, in their first jobs, or learning how to use a fax machine, and how sort of far we've come since then. So the kind of point, the reason we were bringing this up is that it's not enough just to learn how to use a fax machine or how to use a phone or how to use email. You have to really learn how to learn technology. It has to be a broader sort of education that's coming out of the undergrad experience to actually prepare people to be really digitally competent in the real world, because you can go into such a range of places. So today we're here to talk about the Bryn Mawr Digital Competencies program, which is kind of the answer to how students learn tech skills. So I'm going to start off just by giving you a brief overview of what the program looks like right now. And then Jenny's going to talk a little bit more about the why and the how for the institution, and how you could perhaps start programs like this at your own places. And we'll stop periodically throughout the presentation for any questions or comments. So the framework, the Digital Competencies framework, it is in, you can read more about it on our website, but basically there are 5 main areas of concentration. There are digital survival skills, which are really everything that's needed to, all the baseline skills we're hoping that our undergraduates get. So this is things like being able to connect to the Wi-Fi or organize your files, but it's also things like troubleshooting and metacognition, all the kind of baseline skills that you would need to survive in our digital world. Then you have digital communication, which we found especially popular with humanities programs, although all of these are pretty universal. That's just about being able to talk and tell stories online. So if students are doing any kind of audiovisual production, podcasts, videos, building websites, that would fit under digital communication. We have 2 data categories, which basically carry a project all the way from being able to ethically and responsibly collect electronic data, all the way to being able to analyze it and visualize it and really tell a compelling story and make an argument with those numbers. And finally, our 5th category, critical making design and development, are the upper level skills to really take a leadership in a technology area. So these are things like coding, project management, digital scholarship, design thinking. So that's our framework at a glance. Now I'm going to talk through just a few aspects of our implementation strategy, why it feels like a sort of liberal arts focus to us, and some of the decisions we made on the way. So are you still seeing are you seeing different slides? Or are you still looking at the reflection question slide?
We just went back to the reflection questions.
That's,
we didn't see the framework.
Okay. Okay, maybe there's just a
lag.
A lag. That was interesting. Cool. All right. So our first one is the first aspect of implementation is that there are many pathways to success. So we really, as we were developing this initiative, we didn't want it to be, okay, we have 19 competencies and every student needs to develop all of them equally. Some of them are just going to be more interesting, more relevant to different students in their paths. So the idea is that the competencies are a map, but they're not a prescriptive checklist that students have to complete. Some students will learn a little bit about many of them. Some students will dig really deeply into a few. And these are all successful ways to use this framework. The second feature is that it's both curricular and co-curricular. The idea is that this isn't something that a student can go in and do an online module and sort of be done. We have internships, we have sort of intensive weekend courses, online modules. We work with faculty to integrate this into their classes. So there are a lot of opportunities for students to develop this both within and outside the traditional curriculum. There's an example timeline on our website. I won't go through it now in that much detail, but basically the idea is that a student going through this program will encounter the digital competencies at different moments, both sort of ones that we organize. So they might get a library session, or they might take a class with a faculty member we're working with, but they'll also be doing things like maybe they'll make a website for their club. Maybe they'll help their aunt figure out her email at home. And these are all things that are building the digital competencies as they go along. The next feature is a liberal arts focus and approach. So for the competencies, we tried to stay relatively technology agnostic and focus more on these skills, including metacognition and design thinking, critical data visualization, that really encourage students not just to use the technology, but also to think about why they're using it and how they're using it, what it means that they embrace certain methods of knowing and presenting information. And gradually over time, we have realized that there are several pieces to this initiative, which are listed on this in the second bullet point there. Students need the opportunity to reflect on what they know and what they're interested in. This is, again, going to that liberal arts focus. So we're building in opportunities for students to think about what they know and what they care about. We're increasing opportunities for students to build the competencies, which we can talk about more later on. The third stage is working with students to help them articulate what they know and what they care about. For this one, we're partnering with our Career Services Center to help students learn ways to talk about what they know to different audiences. And of course, then we iterate these things. We go over them again and again. This is not like a sort of done and done process. It's something that builds gradually over time. And we've noticed that our students, like once they have this vocabulary, once they have the language of the digital competencies, they realize, as one of our wonderful interns from last summer said, that these are things that they're already doing every day in their rooms and their dorms. The difference is that once there's a framework in place and they know about it, they can start doing it consciously. They can appreciate how much they actually know. We think this is particularly important. I went back to reflection questions again. I swear I did not click on reflection questions, everybody. All right. Because Bryn Mawr is a women's college, and we know statistically that women tend to undersell their technical abilities. And so the idea that young women in our program get extra practice in really articulating all of the things they know how to do is something we think is particularly important. And we forged some really valuable student allies along the way in this goal. So we work with student career peers. These are student career counselors who peer tutor other students. So we train them in the digital competencies, and then they can take the language out into their own training with other students. And the fantastic Engineers and Makers Club, who have done some really cool projects around things like physical computing and AR/VR that we've been able to be involved with. So I think that's my snapshot of the program. We wanted to give just a brief pause to see if there are any questions so far, any comments.
Hearing none.
Okay, all right, we will forge on.
So this is Jenny. I'm taking over now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why the digital competencies are sort of how we got here. And not surprising to many of you, this kind of got started in the MOOC moment. The MOOC moment at Bryn Mawr was two things. One, there was a digital task force, which was a board level or organized at the board level task force to really look at how Bryn Mawr was equipped and using technology into the 21st century. So everything from infrastructure to how we were connecting with constituencies, connecting with prospective students, to sort of curricular and co-curricular and faculty support. And one of the things that really came out of that was the idea that it was needed, we really needed to focus on enabling digital fluency for students, faculty, and staff. So that was something that in this sort of broad scale approach, people were thinking about. And then also kind of in the same moment was the blended learning in the liberal arts study, which kind of got started with a grant from the Next Generation Learning Initiative, I think, which was our current president, then our provost, organized with about 40 different liberal arts colleges to really look at blended learning, or this combination of online learning and then in-person, in-class, sort of more traditional face-to-face learning. And would this be something that would work at small residential liberal arts colleges? And so I think the focus on that was sort of what kinds of technological innovation work well with the residential liberal arts colleges. In a MOOC, in our case, it wasn't. It was really kind of exploring this combination of in-class and online. And again, one of the things that came out of that, as we were working with faculty to integrate different online or sort of digitally influenced learning opportunities in their courses, different, say, digital projects, digital mapping, was the question of what skills do students have? If we ask them to upload images, for example, are they going to know how to convert them into the right form and things like this? So my team sort of at the grassroots level was working with faculty to kind of identify what skills students had and work on building scaffolding for them. And I think it's that sort of top down and bottom up that came together and said, hey, we have these learning opportunities that we're trying to build for students, but we don't have a framework for sort of articulating them and explaining them and talking about why they're important. So again, it was kind of taking these things that were already going on and trying to maybe make them a little bit more organized, a little bit more coordinated, and then give them the shared framework of language that we could use to talk about. And as we started doing this, there was a moment where we sort of realized, wow, this has a huge transformative potential for us, given the connection to our mission, and then also given the importance for students, for prospective students and their families. So, and as Beth alluded to this a little bit, the importance for our mission as a liberal arts college, the top thing there is actually an op-ed that Gina and our president, Kim Cassidy, wrote about this. But it's really, we know that for students with liberal arts degrees, these are actually very valuable, and particularly valuable as technology. Again, it's a changing field, it's an ever-changing world. And so this learning how to learn, reflecting, communication skills, these set you up well. But if you can come out of college with that and then some real concrete skills that you can point to, you're all the more likely to get that sort of first job. And so these are some articles that sort of talk to this. And this is, I think, a message that our students and our prospective students are getting and their families are getting. So this is something we sort of can use to talk about this program and its importance. And then the second bit really is our importance for us as a women's liberal arts college, right? And so Bryn Mawr was historically founded in order to help women break into fields in which they were not allowed to earn degrees historically. It has been a leading STEM school for women for all of its history. And so this is sort of the next, in some ways, the tech world and all that can mean are one area in which women are still underrepresented. So this was particularly important to us for that reason. So again, any questions there, or shall I move on? Okay, we're hearing, seeing none, so I'm going to move on, but feel free to keep, putting them in if you want as we go. So this next section is kind of talking about the sort of not so secrets to our success. We used to call it secrets to our success, but then we realized the more we gave this talk, the less relevant maybe that slide was. So basically, as we sort of developed this idea and started thinking about it, we developed the framework. We went and shopped it around to various stakeholders here on campus. We went through the faculty governance. There's a group called CLIC, which is really the sort of computer and advising library faculty governance body that advises Gina, my boss, our boss, the director of libraries and CIO on things related to libraries. So we went there, we went to the curriculum committee, we went to the committee on academic priorities. We went to various folks, alumni networks that are set up. These were particularly important in some of the early drafts. When we brought to the faculty, we said, are these the kinds of competencies that you guys think are useful to students in your various disciplines? And then when we went to the various alumni networks, board members, board committees, asking them sort of the same thing. So we really got that kind of business perspective, the perspective of young women who have just graduated from college. There's a particular group that advises the president that's composed of more recent graduates. So we got their sort of perspectives on this, and then also faculty. And then also we tried them out with our students and kind of shopped them around before bringing them out to the entire student body. We have articulated the connection to the college's mission and strategy. So if you look here, this is the screenshot of the president's page, and there are a set of presidential initiatives that are connected to sort of the strategic initiatives and mission of the college. One of these here that's listed as Digital Bryn Mawr, and for us, Digital Bryn Mawr means the blended learning in the liberal arts, digital competencies, and then also digital scholarship, which has actually been growing here. It's kind of a more maybe nascent thing, but actually in response to student demand for various digital projects of different kinds. So there's been a lot of synergy there. And then also along with that, we have some institutional funding that we can use to sponsor digital projects that either research or either scholarship or teaching curriculum, often both because we're a liberal arts college. But we can usually provide some funding, some startup funding, certainly connect people to the folks in our organization and Library and Information Technology Services who can help other faculty. It serves as a way of kind of hearing about interesting projects and helping to see them to fruition in those two areas. We've also really worked hard to leverage campus partnerships, and Beth and I have been working on this, I think, over the past year in particular. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned president, senior staff. We've given presentations for them. We've worked with the admission office to make sure that this is rolled out to prospective students, admitted students. We hosted events for admitted students as they came to campus this year for the first time. Within LITS and our organization, there are several sort of ways in which we bring these to students and to the wider community. With faculty, we work through various programs to make sure we're hearing what they're doing and they're hearing about the opportunities that we can provide for them and having a chance to connect what they're doing to the digital competencies. We've worked with the undergraduate dean's office, LILAC, which is our Leadership, Innovation, and the Liberal Arts Center. I have to always think about it. And that's basically our career peer office, our career office, our internship office, and our service learning organization are kind of all together. And so we worked with them to insert ourselves wherever it makes sense for them and vice versa. And then also we've worked with development and alumni relations, as does LILAC very conscientiously, to kind of connect students to alumni who have gone on into tech fields to talk to them about the work that they're doing. And then finally with communications to help us sort of get the message out to all of these different constituents.
And I think if I can jump in, I think that part of the reason we have reached so broadly and the people we've tried to partner with is because we don't want this to be an initiative that is just one thing or just fits into a tiny part of the student's life. The idea is that the digital competencies are things you're developing all the time. So you kind of have to
Right.
integrate with as many different groups on campus as you can to make it as meaningful as possible.
And then we've mentioned Lilac as our sort of a key partner for us. Lilac was also really important, I think, as a sort of existing parallel model. And I didn't really realize this until I started talking to people outside of Bryn Mawr about the way we'd gone about doing this. So if you look, this is a snapshot from their website. It's very much, they were organized not too long ago. I would say within the last, certainly the last 10 years, possibly the last 5 to 6. And their mission really has been to help students connect the work that they're doing in a liberal arts college, that sort of liberal arts education, with the outside world through internships, through service learning, through engagement with alumni, through civic engagement type opportunities. So they really do a lot of this reflection and sort of how does my academic life connect to these opportunities that I have. And we have been able to both partner with them and also, I think, model a lot of the programming and things like this that we do. It also has meant that it's a very familiar model to other groups that we worked with. And so it seems like they've kind of paved the way, I think, in many ways for us. The other thing that we've been very conscious about doing is building in sort of assessment from the beginning, and also outreach that's kind of based on this assessment. So there's sort of 2 questions here. How do we know if this is working? How do we ensure that it's working? So what data do we need to gather in order to test ourselves, make sure we're achieving the goals that we've set for the program? But then also, how can we gather that data in order to continue to build excitement and engagement and support? So I think this has played a sort of dual role for us. And we have a couple of, this was what the board asked for, actually, which was sort of leading lagging indicators. So things that we're doing there we go, leading lagging indicators. So very business speak, but things that we're doing, sort of leading, are we counting the number of people who are going to particular programming opportunities and stuff like that? So sort of more quantitative evidence that we're putting in place programming that would be leading us to achieve our goals. And then the lagging indicators are actual measurements of impact. Do students mention this? Do they talk about it being important? But we realized that given that our goals for students are not only that they have a chance to reflect on their competencies, to build their competencies, but also to articulate their competencies to various audiences, one of the key sort of markers of success is, are students able to tell compelling stories about their experiences? And so again, gathering these and showcasing them both serves to help sort of build excitement, build engagement, continue to reach out to people and bring them in, but also I think to demonstrate that this is, we think, hopefully working. So that's pretty much our presentation, and we're happy to take questions or comments.
I'm wondering, I like the compelling stories, and I'm wondering if they have any compelling stories, even if it's not your own, but one that you've heard a student tell that maybe you could relate.
Did you get that?
No, not quite.
Not quite.
Okay. So that was from Autumn. She says she loves this idea of the compelling stories, and she's wondering if there is. You're looking at my tie. That's no use at all. She's wondering if there's one that that you can relate, whether it's one that you were involved with or just one that you heard from a student. Tell us a compelling story about the frameworks.
I mean, we have. I can think of a couple. One. Yeah, do you want to go?
we had a couple of students who were working. They were working as HoloLens interns for us. So these are devices, not audiovisual, AR, VR devices, augmented reality, goggle, headset type things, and they were developing an app. And this is a Microsoft product. So Microsoft had a HoloLens meetup in Philadelphia, and you know, we heard about it through our colleagues, and we passed it on to them and really got them to go, got them excited. And they went, and they were one of, I think, maybe 3 or 4 women. There were two women from Bryn Mawr. They were the only kids, or the only people, sorry, these were adults. They were the only people who had actually had a HoloLens device, because at this point, these are development and devices, and we got ours through an agreement we have with Pearson to test for them. But the other thing was that they were the only women, you know, in the room, and they actually berated, not really, but they went up and they were like, "Why did you not have more women?" You know, so it was just really one, I think. For them, it was very meaningful to see that they were getting an opportunity that they might otherwise not have had. But then also, I think that kind of realization that as women, they were sort of, what would you call it? Sort of arguing for everyone else, you know, trying to build diversity among them. So that's my favorite story.
Yeah.
What has been the impact on the prospective students?
What's been the impact on the prospective students?
That is a very exciting question, and it's just this year.
Yes,
right?
we are getting our baseline assessment right now. So this is the first year where we're going to be it's going to be in the active marketing to prospective students. What we're really, I mean, the hope is we know that students coming to a small liberal arts college, they're often very excited about it, but sometimes their parents are a little bit concerned about it, especially, this is something we've heard from our own students who have come in for things like computer science, where they have had to sort of make a case for their parents that a small liberal arts college is a good choice for that. And I know we've been part of the kind of campus tours, so students get a chance to, this year they got a chance to come in and play with different AR, VR devices and play with physical computing programs and learn about the initiative. And the idea is that this will help students make the case for the idea that a smaller liberal arts college is a great place to learn technology as well as to learn all of the liberal arts skills that we're known for, and that these are not actually in conflict with each other, that these can really be things that go together and make sense together.
Another key audience, once we started talking to the admissions office, we realized were counselors, high school, college counselors, and our admissions officer telling us that Bryn Mawr had a reputation for being very old and venerated, and not something you would think of when you were thinking of digital. And so she was really excited about materials that she could provide to them to kind of slowly change the picture. The thing I was thinking about, we worked to have there's a questionnaire that goes around to prospective students every year, or sorry, admitted students. And one of the things on that questionnaire now is something related to the digital competencies. And so the questions are along the lines of what made you decide to come, what was exciting, what was less exciting, that sort of thing. So we'll start to see if...
Yeah, so ask us again in like 5 years and we will have a very specific answer to that question.
We might have
this year we don't have quite as much info yet.
I'm at Bryn Mawr College, and part of the Associated Colleges of the Midwest, which is going to have a meeting this summer, I think, at Callister, for the colleges who are interested in starting this kind of initiative. So I guess my question would be, what would be your top recommendations for a small liberal arts school that is just beginning to plan for this kind of initiative?
You make that out?
Almost. Could you? I heard a top recommendation.
Mo Pelzel from Grinnell, who's saying that this will be a topic at the upcoming ACM meeting, and is looking for your top recommendation. And I'm sorry, could you repeat a little bit of that? The
top recommendations for a college just getting started.
Okay, so top recommendations for folks just getting started.
So I think number one for me would be find your lilac. Find whatever it is like the relationships that you can start building on. In our case, it was very helpful to find folks who were sort of amenable to the way we were thinking about doing this, amenable to the message and the idea. And so those for us were the Leadership, Innovation, and Liberal Arts Center, which again is our career services, service learning, those folks. But then also there were certainly key alumni groups. There were members of the board who really got it. I think there were faculty who really got it. So finding those folks and kind of working with them to develop something out, but then also to sort of get them on board so that they then go out and kind of get other people on board, I think would be the top recommendation.
I think, yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think one of the things I know as we've been talking about the initiative, which has made it easier to make a case for it, is the fact that in the very initial stages of making the framework, you and the other people creating it talked to people, both alumni who are working in different fields and also faculty from different departments. So the language is, the idea is that this is the language that can form a bridge between different ways of understanding the same thing. So what we found is that students or the faculty might say, oh, students are learning R in my psychology classroom, and a company might be looking for somebody who can do data analysis and isn't specifically looking for the language, and a student may not immediately be able to make the connection between the thing they did that felt kind of very specific to a particular course and a bigger skill like data analysis. So the idea is that this is the language that will kind of make the connections. And I would also add, just like, this is maybe a little further down, but once the initiative's going, our students were incredibly useful resources, both in terms of refining our programming and the way we talk about the initiative. They also helped make a lot of our materials for us, and in that process, I think are both building their digital competencies and also helping us build the initiative. So if you go on our website, you'll see some beautiful student graphics, including that our main kind of logo is created by students. There's student created videos that we use for kind of promotional purposes. So just like the earlier you can bring students in and get their feedback and express to them that this is really an initiative for them, I think the better.
So I have a question kind of about the other end in talking about assessment, and it's a term that's come up multiple times at the conference. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that you have this approach that you've got that's looking at both leading and lagging indicators. I'm wondering if you can talk a little more about the process by which you identified what those would be.
Yes. We also should say that we also very consciously did not look at testing whether, so for example, we have data visualization and analysis as one of our competencies. We don't actually assess whether students have developed that skill or that competency, in part because for two reasons. One, if you think of these things as things that you're building over time, right, you have to start getting into, well, at what level, and start itemizing sort of proficiency and in these various levels. And then the other thing is, we didn't want to get into the position of Bryn Mawr saying, oh, this person can do data analysis or data visualization is very different from someone in that field saying that the student can do those things. And so we sort of didn't really want to go in that direction. What we really wanted to look at was, are the students sort of across the board, do they know about the project or the program? Can they identify the skills? Can they talk about how they've built them? And can they demonstrate effectively that they have, using their own sort of language and abilities? So those are the sort of things that we are assessing. And to develop the leading and lagging indicators in particular, we looked at where leading indicator, what the key aspects of the program were going to be. So where was it that they were going to develop these skills? And then where can we count sort of, and what's our year? And if we're building, is the number of students participating getting bigger over time? For the lagging indicators, we really looked at moments at which we'd like to assess students and see if they've heard about the program, if they can say something about how it has had impact, if they can say something about their own digital competencies that we could then use to sort of measure progress over time. And so currently we're hitting them as admitted students. We're hitting them in the senior survey. And the senior survey was an easy one because we already had something. The admitted students was an easy one because we already had something. So that was another thing we were consciously, our students are way, way, way over surveyed. So we were trying to find particular points at which someone is already asking them questions that we could then insert. We participate in the MISO survey, which is a survey of sort of library and information technology use. So we have a couple of questions in there that are specific to the digital competencies. And that happens among all students every 2 years, students, faculty, and staff, I believe. And then we're working on an alumni measure. And with the alumni one, we found that there actually wasn't anyone who was sort of regularly reaching out to alumni. There are people doing it for specific purposes, but in terms of like something that happens, you know, every year for a particular group. So we're working with various folks who have similar programs to think about how would that alumni outreach and survey look.
Thanks.
So it's sort of a mixture of practicality and trying to be a bit systematic about it, I think.
Any questions? Well, help me thank our colleagues from Bryn Mawr.
Feel free to connect with us.
Good luck on your conference tomorrow.
Yes.
They've taken time out the day before their conference to talk to us. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, thank you. This is a pleasure. And you can tweet at us at any point. I'll keep an eye on it, and any other questions or anything that come up for you later. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.